Hello, do I look this good naturally? Or am I someone from the blue zones? I'll never tell. So, I read the book, The Blue Zones, second edition, 9 lessons from the living longer. Oh, crap. Hello, do I look this good naturally? Or do I live in one of the blue zones? I'll never tell. But I read the book, The Blue Zone, second edition, 9 lessons for living longer from those who have lived the longest. 2012 by Dan Buettner. Okay, so the chances of living to 100 are 1% of the population. So it makes sense that we should talk to these people. And that's exactly what Dan and his team did. Interviewed them and then asked them about their lifestyles. Every class in psychology that you ever take, it always comes down to genes and environment. Okay, so the Danish study, twin study, I'm a twin by the way, shows that only 25% of how long we live is based on our genes. That means the rest of it is based on how we live, the lifestyle that we choose. Okay, so the blue zones are those areas that Dan and his team determined to have the lowest rates of chronic disease and the highest population of centurions, those who are over 100, which include, can't say these words, the Bulgarian region of Sardinia in Italy, Okinawa, Loma Linda, California, the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica, and the Greek island of Icaria. In those areas, longevity was found to be greatly influenced by food. Okay, so more vegetables, beans, fruit, and less red meat, physical activity, walking in your natural environment, as opposed to formal exercise, family and having a purpose in your life, a reason other than yourself to get out of bed in the morning, communities and spirituality, some kind of connection with others, a temperament or environment that reduces stress, and in some cases, and all cases actually, sun exposure. Okay, so the scientific research does support that Dan and his team talked about, that 95% plant-based diet with the addition of red meat only on special occasions for up to 5 times a month does increase the likelihood of living to 100. Okay, so, or actually the likelihood of longevity. So according to the Journal of American Medicine Association, the substitution of plant protein for animal protein, okay, so plants versus animals, especially reducing the amount of processed red meat, was associated with lower mortality and also diets high in animal protein increase the likelihood of heart disease. Okay, so reducing meat lowers mortality, suggesting the importance of protein. Okay, the BMJ also found that eating vegetables and fruit every day reduces the risk of heart disease and cancer. Okay, so beans, in this case, legumes, which to tell you the truth I've never heard of before, are plants that produce a pod with seeds inside. So it can be beans, peas, lentils, and chicken peas. And these are rich in healthy fibers and proteins. Okay, so a number of studies, including those from the Asia Pacific Journal of Clinical Nutrition, the Journal of Nutrition, show that these lower mortality rates. Okay, so, but there's a downside to it. I wish somebody would have told me this before. To the nutritional quality of legumes. They also contain so-called anti-nutrients, which are substitutes that can interfere with digestion and absorption of other nutrients. Okay, so raw string beans, which I like to eat, or spinach, okay, actually contain substances of the anti-nutrients which may cause harm. Okay, so the bottom line is that you have to prepare the foods correctly. Okay, then we have whole grains. My whole grains here are some bread, okay, which are rich in fiber. Okay, so a high intake of whole grains can reduce blood pressure. That's good. And it's also associated with reducing the risk of colon cancer and the death from heart disease, according to the dietary guidelines for America. All right, so nuts, which to tell you the truth, I never eat, or never haven't eaten until I read this book, unless I'm drinking cocktails, is a good source of fiber, polyunsaturated and monosaturated fats. So combined with a healthy diet, they reduce mortality and may even help to reverse metabolic syndrome. And that's from, in addition to Blue Zones, the Archives of Internal Medicine and the Journal of the American Medical Association. And fish, my favorite, and what I'm going to have for dinner after I talk to you tonight, was eaten in, how do you say it? Archaea and Sardinia. It's a good source of omega-3 fats, which are important to health and also brain health. Okay, so this is according to the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. And eating fish is associated with slower brain decline in old age and the reduction of heart disease, according to the Journal of Clinical Nutrition. Okay, the other things the Blue Steps people did, at least in Okinawa. Oh, geez. That slowed aging was that they followed the 80% rule, which according to Confucius means that you eat until you're 80% full. Not 100% full, but 80% full. This was also backed up by a study of monkeys, which found that if you reduce your caloric intake by up to 30%, the monkeys live longer. Okay, so other studies have shown that if you eat slowly, you can reduce your hunger and increase your feelings of fullness compared to eating rapidly. Okay, so according to the BMJ. Okay, so this has been found to, because of your hormones, make you feel full. Okay, they only receive their maximum blood levels 20 minutes after you eat, according to a study. Consuming 2 glasses of wine, here's to ya, as my mom used to say, of red wine actually per day is particularly common in 2 of the Blue Zones, Icarian and Sardinic Blue Zones. But what I thought was interesting was the 102-year-old guy, what was his name, Gillespie. He drank 1 liter of red wine a day. I would think that would kill you. All right, but according to the Journal of Food Chemistry, the particular kind of wine that is in Sardinia, it's called the Cannonau wine, has extremely high levels of antioxidants, which has been shown to prevent damage to DNA. Who knew? And that, of course, contributes to aging. Okay, so the clinical research on aging journal also concluded that drinking moderate amounts of red wine slightly increases longevity by lowering blood pressure. Okay, so more good cholesterol and also improve the quality of sleep. On the other side of the coin, other researchers have found that just people who drink tend to have better lifestyles. So, just like everything else, who knows? Okay, now, the other thing that I found interesting in the blue zones was that exercise was built into everybody's life. Okay, so it really wasn't that they aren't doing forced exercise, meaning they're not going to the gym and using weights the way some of us do. But they're doing exercise naturally. Okay, so the Journal of the Association of the Medical Association, excuse me, I'm dying here talking about aging, cites that exercise is very important to aging. Okay, so most of the interviewees in the blue zones just have to exercise because of their daily chores. Location that they live requires walking and also their poverty level. Okay, so the Sardinian men in the blue zones raised farm animals. Okay, so sheep actually that lived on steep slopes, so they had to walk long distances to work. In other words, to graze, to let their sheep graze. Okay, so outside of the blue zones, the physical activity guidelines for Americans recommends 150 moderate intense minutes of aerobic exercise a week. Okay, so what is that? 2.5 hours a week? That doesn't sound like much. Okay, so other studies have shown that the benefits of exercise in reducing the risk of cancer, heart disease, and also reduces overall death. Okay, so even doing more extensive exercise or heavy exercise can reduce the risk of death by up to 39%. Okay, so something that I struggle with is getting enough sleep. And apparently the people that live in the blue zones, they do get enough sleep, or have for centuries gotten enough sleep. In part, as in Sardinia, because lifestyle hasn't really changed, according to the book, since the time of Christ. Okay, so they have to go to bed because the lights are out, or they don't have lights. Okay, but the people in the blue zones, it's not like they use alarm clocks or anything. It's just that they sleep as much as they need to sleep, and often took daytime naps. Okay, so this is supported by the Journal of Sleep, which finds that not getting enough sleep or getting too much sleep can significantly increase the risk of death. Wow, too much sleep can increase the risk of death. Didn't know that. Heart disease or stroke. Okay, so 7 hours is optimal. Naps should be limited to 30 minutes, and the longer naps are associated with the increased risk of heart disease and death. I find that hard to believe, but that's what the Sleep Journal said. Okay, so now to the good stuff, which is what else besides eating and sleep contributes to longevity? Being religious or spiritual. Okay, now this is interesting to me because the blue zones of Loma Linda, California is a religious community. And a number of studies have shown that being religious is associated with a lower risk of death. Okay, and that social support reduces the amount of depression. Okay, but UCLA studies found that Mormons live 10 times longer than the average American. Okay, so some critics suggest that not including Mormons, that studies should include people like Mormons, or the Blue Zone should include people like Mormons, or should disinclude, if that's a word, people in the Loma Linda religious communities because it's a religious affiliation. Okay, so their religion dictates what their lifestyle is instead of it being, and of course it's a chosen lifestyle, but instead of it being just a lifestyle that happens. Okay, so in addition to being religious or spiritual, Blue Steps also says that having a life purpose or a sense of purpose, and for those that live in Okinawa, as an example, this is associated with reducing the risk of death and also psychological well-being. Okay, so knowing what you're getting up for in the morning, other than yourself, so helping others in some way, or being responsible for family, as an example, can help to increase your longevity. And also having older people living with younger people. Okay, so that's never going to happen in my family. Never. But if grandparents that live with their families and men who have daughters or granddaughters that, or women in general, take care of them, increases the likelihood of living to be older. Okay, and also a social network, a healthy social network. Okay, so they call it Moai, is that how you say it? And Okinawa, that's a mouthful. And this can affect your health. Okay, so for example, a good social network. So if your friends are obese, you're going to be obese. But if you have friends that aren't obese, or your social network doesn't include people that are obese, you're likely to make better choices. Okay, so now we have to talk about what are the strengths of Blue Steps and what are the weaknesses. Okay, so basically, everything that I said before is a strength. Okay, so eating, say the word eating, a plant-based diet rich in legumes, grain, vegetables, nuts, and fruit. So I forgot to show you my fruits right over here. My favorite that I have in my yogurt. Oops, I spilled it on the table. Which is berries and raspberries. Getting sufficient amounts of sleep. Eating nuts. Limiting the amount of meat, in particular red meat. And the amount of alcohol. Okay, and actually changing from white wine to red wine. Adding exercise. Having a strong sense of purpose and a belief in a higher power. Strong family networks, social networks, can also influence how long you live. Okay, so the greatest weakness with Blue Steps, I mean, not Blue Steps, I used to work for a company named Blue Steps, Blue Zones, according to Lifestyles Magazine, is its lack of qualitative and quantitative scientific evidence and peer review research. Okay, so, and the populations aren't necessarily following a specific diet. Okay, so cause and effect. They're not following a specific diet. Okay, so it changes per person, but they live a lifestyle that is conducive to good health. And the financial realities actually limited the amount of meat, or for that matter, fish, yum, my dinner, after I do this, is limited. Okay, so because of economic conditions, financial hardships. Okay, the other negative, as I said, is that there are certain people that aren't included or could be included, the Mormons, as an example, or just everybody that's over 100. Okay, so they only looked at these particular areas. Okay, so why aren't Mormons on the list? Okay, the other thing is that, just like we talked about, everything is based on genes and environment. Okay, so the Sardinians, or the sardine people as I call them, came from a distinctive gene pool. Okay, that was over the years, over the centuries, increased the likelihood that they would develop good genes. And they pass those genes on to the next generation, which increased likelihood. Okay, so the mountainous regions that they lived in also required hardiness to survive and grow food to eat. Okay, so the bottom line is, how can I put what I read into my life? Okay, so to tell you the truth, my family and my cousins, and of all of us really, we had cereal for breakfast. All of us that went to, my Catholic school, we had cereal for breakfast, peanut butter and jelly for lunch, cookies after school, and every night we had meat, potatoes, or bread, milk, 2 vegetables, and a dessert. Okay, my father insisted upon that. We had to have meat and vegetables, meat and potatoes, and bread every night. Okay, so my parents also had, as did all the Irish Catholic friends, parents, a Manhattan or 2 every night. Okay, so we never ate beans. Only poor people ate beans, according to my mother. We only had beans when we had hot dogs. That was it. Okay, so because of Blue Steps, the Blue Zone, it opened my eyes to a different way of eating. Okay, so I never ate nuts before, as I said, so I started adding those. I love vegetables, but now I realize that I have to cook them. Can't just eat them out of the bag after I wash them. And though I've never been a big eater, I no longer think that I have to eat meat or fish every night. Okay, so since I'm not much of a cook, that's really good news. Okay, I think that the Blue Zones was really an easy read, and that for those that are elderly and raised the way that I was, it's simpler to follow than eat a cup of this or a cup of that. So it's easier than just following a stricter diet, I guess, because it's so vague. Okay, so that's one of the weaknesses as well. Okay, so I think I covered everything. And now I'm going to have my dinner, which is fish, green beans. I don't really want to eat a piece of bread, so I'm not going to eat that. And I'm going to have, when I watch TV tonight, a couple of nuts and a glass of red wine. So, cheers. Cheers to you, and cheers to me, because this is my first video and my only selfie that I've ever done. That should be worth an additional 10 points. Good night. One from the blue. Okay, so, or actually the likelihood of longevity. So according to, okay, so some fiber. And it's funny.